With the increased amounts came overdoses, right? I remember the first one. It was scary. Didn't know what happened. The house I was at, they had Narcan, and he saved my life. And I was like, whoa, and it wasn't intentional. I was just like, whoa, did too much. Like, don't do that much anymore. And the reality is, I wouldn't care if I died. The only reason I wanted to live for the next day is because my love for that damn drug.
Yeah.
If I died from an overdose, then I'm not going to be able to use tomorrow. Well, yeah, duh, you're dead. But that's the thought.
Yeah.
I love that first high so
insanity.
much. I'll do anything for it.
It's insanity.
Yeah.
Welcome to Sober When I Wrote This. I'm Mike DeGroat, your host. I'm here today as a pupil, not as a critic, trying to get to the bottom of why people suffer, why people choose to end that suffering, and for those that don't end it, what they did to overcome it. I continue to have people I know and love kill themselves, and I'm familiar with that pain. And I just want to get to the bottom of what is happening and tell a story and tell my story and interview people who have similar stories to be able to offer hope for those who are suffering. And the climax of this was that when I go to sleep at night, often I'll listen to my Bible app. And for the past 2 years, I would continually wake up to Isaiah 61 from a dead sleep. And it didn't matter if I woke up at 10 p.m. or 2 a.m. or 3:30 a.m. or 5 a.m. I was waking up to Isaiah 61 being read. And so before we start the podcast and the interview for today, I want to read that scripture so you understand what the basis of this is. Isaiah 61, the Spirit of the Lord God is upon me, because the Lord has anointed me to bring good news to the poor. He has sent me to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim liberty to the captives, and the opening of the prison to those who are bound, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor, to comfort all who mourn. Recently, I had a childhood friend shoot himself. And this is about the sixth person I've known to do that in the last few years. And because I have a story to tell, if I don't tell it, I find myself complicit in their death. So I don't know if this is going to be any good, but it's the best that I can do. And I thought that there's no one better to start with than my brother. And so here goes our very first episode, Sober When I Wrote This. Why don't you state your name, your age, and your drug of choice?
Yep. My name is Travis Tuls. My age is 39, and my drug of choice is heroin.
Heroin.
Tell
me a little bit of how that drug connected us.
Yeah. As much as that drug was killing me, everything I have in my life today is this new life I've created was because of that drug and where it took me to the depths on my knees. And in 2017 was, at that time, that was the lowest form of rock bottom I had seen. I was under the influence heavily, was definitely contemplating suicide in the form of an overdose or a faster method, one that would take a lot more guts, a 357, and I had purchased that 357 2 days prior to making a post on Facebook. And in that post, I basically told the world that I was done, didn't want to live anymore, had lost my job, had lost my relationship, wasn't in contact with anybody that loved me. And I made this post, cry out for help. Don't even remember the exact words, but it went along the lines like, I need help. And I stayed alive that day, surprisingly. To wake up the next day to a bunch of messages on Facebook from people I hadn't talked to in years. I think I had probably over 100 messages. And out of all those messages, I was sober. I hadn't got high that day yet. I saw one message pop out. It was from Mike DeGroat. And I said to myself, that's interesting. I haven't talked to him since 2006. And it was brief then. And before that, it was probably another 10 years. But I opened that message, and I remember like it was yesterday, it said, hey, bro, where are you at? I'll come get you right now. And can't really describe the feeling that I felt, but I know this, there was a glimpse of light in this dark, dark, dark tunnel that I was traveling through. And I responded. I told you where I was. And I told you how we could coordinate something.
Yeah. And the next thing I know, you were walking off an airplane in Lubbock.
2 days later.
2 days later, detoxing from heroin with a trash bag.
Yep.
Of all your belongings.
Yeah.
And that was kind of the start of our journey together, wasn't it?
It was. Yeah, I won't ever forget that time either. I remember, I had gotten high the night before I left and did not use the day I came out. And so the sobering moments started happening on the airplane. The thought of, where am I going? What did you get yourself into? You're not ready. All this fear, all this anxiety. And when I got off that plane, kind of just was relinquished, just because I saw this guy, my cousin, who I hadn't seen in years, with open arms, telling me basically, I got you, bro. Come on. And from that day on, the seed was planted and confidence was instilled, that I could do this, but it was going to take some work. And that was just the beginning stages of it all.
But it was a couple steps in the right direction.
Yeah, for sure.
So the message that we're trying to create is a message of hope.
Yeah.
But that hope is predicated on a story that is based on not a lot of our finest moments. Mm-hmm. So can you tell me a little bit about what your life was like and what your addiction was like prior to you stepping off that plane?
Sure.
How did you get there?
Yeah, I guess, not to dive into to take all day to talk about my battle with heroin and when it started, but I can give you the first day. It was in 2006. I was in a garage at a house party with a lot of people I grew up with, high schoolers, all back from college. I was 20, and there was a friend of mine who asked me if I wanted to smoke opium with him. And I was in my party stage. I was interested in trying new things, called the experimental stage. No self-awareness that I was an addict yet, not even close. But I decided to go into the garage with him, and I saw a piece of foil with a little piece of black on it. And the other two guys in that circle were pretty close friends of mine as well. And we all did it, we all did it with no idea what was coming after that. Out of that circle of four.
How old were you?
20. It was in 2006. And, that it's never easy to talk about this part, but, that group of four, there's only one of us alive today. So, with a little foreshadowing, we got high for recreation, but that day was the end of three of my friends' lives.
The beginning
of the end. Didn't happen that day, but they are no longer here. And, with addicts, it's, once I took that first hit, I was powerless. I did it the next day, the next day, the next day. Became addicted to it. Found out that it wasn't opium. Found out it was heroin that we were doing. Kept on doing it. But the problem, in that span of time, I found a drug and something that made me feel so good. It made me feel like everything was going to be okay. warm, fuzzy blanket. And me being, I was popular, had a lot of friends, was something that people looked to for guidance, leadership. What'd I do? I went and told everybody about that drug because I loved it so much. Had no idea what that feeling was, but I wanted to share it with everybody.
Yeah.
Friends.
Well, you've always had a lot of love to give.
Mm-hmm.
That's
So I
what I've
wanted
noticed
people
in
to
you.
experience that.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
I was ignorant. I was naive. I had no idea what I was opening these people up to. But I'd speak to eighth graders in Vegas, health classes about opiate addiction, and it's interesting. I bring up they do this Greek mythology section before I come in, and I know this because I coordinated with the director of the school, and I asked them about Pandora's box, and I asked them if they know what it is. They all say yes. I'm like, and what happens when you open up that box? They all answer in unison, you can't close it. And what comes out with it? Well, all the evil, all the demons, all the spirits, all the ugly in the world comes out. And that day in that garage, yep, I opened up that box, let them all into my world. Didn't stop there. Brought the box to friends, siblings, people I loved, everybody I loved. Brought that box to them. Some stuck around. Some said, I can't be a part of that anymore.
Help me understand what your thoughts were when you were using at that time in your early stages of addiction.
Yeah, I was going through a lot, a lot of different family things, a lot of, I had just stopped playing football. My whole identity up until that point in my life was being an athlete.
Mm-hmm.
And then one day I wasn't doing good in school anymore. Didn't have an identity, was lost. And this little drug filled that void. And on top of my identity crisis, I was going through family issues, family breaking up, just a lot of pain. And when I did that drug, it just silenced it all. It was no more. It was temporary, but there was no more. And that relief, yeah, I was addicted to that relief, that silence, that numb, And you flash forward, silence doesn't silence it anymore. As your use and your addiction gets more intense, it doesn't silence anything anymore. It doesn't numb anything anymore. And you just have to keep on doing it and doing it and doing it. It's this vicious cycle. But yeah, that's what I was going through. I was going through a lot, and I just wasn't even really aware of the trauma that was getting created, the pain. And it goes all the way back when you're young,
Who were you as an addict during that time to the ones you love?
Who was I as an addict?
Who were you to them? Who would they say that you are at that time?
Oh, like in the early days or
How were you hurting them?
Yeah, are you talking about when I...
Early.
Well, the thing with opiates is, nobody really knew for, in the early stages, it's very easy to mask because they're not looking for it, but as time goes on, that drug, that's all you do is hurt everybody around you. Like they watch you deteriorate slowly and asking what's going on with him. Yeah. They have no idea.
Well, they become neurotic because of us and oftentimes are as sick as us.
Yeah.
We have that effect on people that love us, don't we?
Yeah, 100%. I just remember, family members, the people that loved me the most, we keep them as far as possible during those times,
I want to jump into something that's going to be hard.
Yeah.
But because I know a bit of your story, I can kind of lead you in that direction. And I know that this is something that people need to hear about. Can you tell me about your sister, Lindsay?
Yep. Yeah.
She was your older sister.
She was. Older sister.
Firstborn,
best friend. Did a lot together. Experienced a lot of good, a lot of bad. She struggled. Before heroin, there was Oxycontins in Vegas, and she struggled with that. She had to remove herself from Vegas and go to Idaho, rehab up there, live with my grandparents,
Yeah.
got her life right, got sober, moved to Reno, was in cosmetology, had a good job. And 2007, I had relapsed on heroin. It's probably my second relapse since the first time I had done it, and realized
Some sobriety at that point?
I did, but this is how it went down. I was sober. I was going to go back to school in Iowa, and I had relapsed while I was waiting to start my fall semester. Didn't tell anybody. It was a 2-week relapse, 2 weeks, to where I was terrified. I was trembling. I'm like, I had just been sober for 8 months. I was going back to school. I thought I had beat this. And then there I was doing it again, lying.
Yeah.
Just right back to where I was, like full speed, I never left off. And I just
never had time.
I never had any time. It picked up right to the point to where I'd stopped.
And probably worse.
Yeah. And I called up my sister and said, hey, I leave for Dort in 6 weeks. I want to come and hang out for a week before I go out there. Didn't tell her I was going through any withdrawals or whatnot. Go up there, and I had some on me. I had 2 balloons left, and I go up there, and I'm in the garage, sneaking, getting high. Right when I'm supposed to be up there detoxing, my sister came out in the garage. She said, what are you doing? I said, I'm smoking opium. The same lie that my friend told me in the garage in 2006.
So you lied to her?
Lied to her, smoking opium. Well, guess what? She's an addict too. Opium, that sounds fun. I've never tried that. Let her hit it. Let her smoke it. Let her. Knowing damn well what I just did. And that the addiction, the drug, it really reveals the ugliest parts in a person. It's where my high and my lie was more important than protecting my older sister from this, the Pandora's box that I'm still opening up for everybody. Here. Now I'm lying about it. I'm not even telling her what it really is. If I told her it's heroin, I don't know if she ever does it.
Well, it speaks to the power of the addiction.
It does.
Because inherently, as a masculine man and the firstborn male, you take it upon yourself to protect your family. You still do. We just had a conversation yesterday. You're ready to fight for your younger brother who's kind of going through some things right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the power of the addiction is so powerful that you'll exchange that post of protection.
Yeah, 100%.
To introduce.
Well, they say it's like, you have to admit you're powerless over this drug.
Yeah.
And I was ready to take my first hit, working for a different entity.
Yeah.
I play that movie back all the time. What if I tell her it's heroin and just get honest and be humble? Be like, I'm broken. Need help. No.
And so what happened from there?
Well, she hits it. She smoked it. And, that was rough day. When you know what happens. It's 2007. And, from that point, I had one more. We smoke it. I kick, cold turkey, go out to Iowa, go to school out there for a little bit, get expelled, getting weed mailed to my college P.O. box. They didn't like that all that much. Go on a family cruise that December, link up with Lindsay again, tell her I'm going to move back to Reno with her. The last time we had chilled was smoking in her garage, and then I went off the door. She didn't do it again. She didn't have access to it. Well, I came back to Reno and I gave her access to it again. It wasn't long before she knew what was up. And she's an addict too, not working a program, just white knuckling it. And yeah, she caught me doing it again. She's like, begging me to smoke it, and I'm letting her. And yeah, that's the start to the drug that really, if we're being honest, ended my sister's life, because that's 2007. It's 2007. The reality is, I wouldn't wish this drug on anybody other than me, if that makes sense. I'm tough to kill, I guess. I'm hard to kill. I can endure pain like more than most people can, I believe. That's what I believe. My sister wasn't ready for that monster.
Where were you when you found out that she overdosed?
High. Extremely high. On a couch at my dealer's house. They called my dealer's phone because I wasn't picking up anybody's phone calls. They called my dealer's phone because I had called Tiffany, my ex at that time, from that number. So she had it. And they come in the room and they're like, yo, 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 yo. And they give me the phone. And I'm like, hello? Like, who's calling? Like, hello? And they tell me Lindsay's dead.
You might not know this, but I was in New Mexico on that day. It was a Sunday morning, wasn't it?
It was Sunday,
November.
November 13th.
My mom was staying with us. I was married at the time. And she came out of the bedroom and her jaw dropped and she said, Lindsay's dead. And I said, Lindsay Tuls? And she said, yeah, because my mom had been working with her a little bit. Lindsay had tried so hard. She tried hard.
Yeah, she did. She did.
And her husband called my mom first to let her know that they had found her. Now, at this point, you and I had lost contact, and we didn't have much contact. We weren't really connected other than we'd see each other on vacation every once in a while.
Yeah.
Have you forgiven yourself for that?
I have. It's interesting how it all happened. The last time I saw my sister, she was, so the way I would operate as a heroin addict is I would go 100 miles per hour until somebody physically removed me from the situation, whether it be handcuffs, a loved one, intervention, whatever it was. And I had a lot of resources still as far as people that loved me. And my sister, my sister had the lease. She had the whole life in Reno. I was just passing through like a tornado, like I usually do, destroying everything in my path. And when it got too bad, one of my good friends said, come out to Jersey for the summer and get right again. So I went out to Jersey. I got right and I left Lindsay. Left her. So that's always, that's showing her the drug. But then going one step further, when I left her, driving away, I cried because I knew that I was leaving her in this absolute hell.
She was hooked.
That I helped create.
Yeah. And
I'm just like, see ya, I gotta go get right. I gotta go get right. And, that's the last time that I saw her briefly, the day that she got married, she was sober again. I wasn't. Skipped the wedding.
So the next time you see her, so to speak,
was at
the funeral.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And tell me what happened at the funeral. You're on the run a little bit.
Well, I'm on the run. Yeah, I'm on the run in Vegas. I have warrants out. I have bail bondsmen calling my dad, trying to locate me. My dad calls me up and he asks me an honest question. You going to be at your sister's funeral? It's a crazy question that you didn't have to ask, and I said, yeah, I'll be there. And that's when they started staging, one of my moments of being rescued, not arrested. But I go to the funeral, I'm high, loaded. My dad's in a lot of pain, and I don't know if he ever even remembers saying this, but I always remember it. And we were sitting in the pew at the church, and he said, "Why'd you show it to her? Why'd you show her this drug?"
Mm-hmm.
I said, "Sorry, it doesn't mean anything when you're high." And he said, "The next thing is it's pretty harsh reality, but," and I agreed at the time, "should have been you. Should have been you." And the reality is, yeah, lots of different times it should have been me. It's a hard, he followed it up with very powerful words, very powerful words. He said, "Do not let your sister die in vain."
I can tell you feel that right now,
Mm-hmm.
and it feels different.
100%.
You're sober.
Yeah.
You're thinking clearly.
Sure.
Could you feel the power of his words at that moment?
No.
Did it mean anything to you?
It did, but not at that exact moment. It hit me, we'll flash forward. I got to see the service. I leave with my brother. Tells me we're going to 7-Eleven to get a Slurpee, right? I was set on a Slurpee, needed the sweets, right? Heroin and sweets. And I get out the car, and all of a sudden I'm swarmed by 5 bounty hunters. Guns drawn, like, get on the ground, hands behind your back. And the only thing I'm thinking, I'm looking at Mark, and I'm like, this ultimate betrayal, this feeling, because I was talking about going to rehab and doing all these things. And that's exactly what I said. How could you? How could you?
Yeah.
And I just was like, Mark's crying, dude.
Yeah.
He's crying.
Can you imagine what it must have been like to be on the other side of this at that point?
Kevin Dickerson, one of my best friends, was in there. He saw it. Courtney saw it. And that was my only thought, is how could you do this? I was going to go to rehab and this and that. It's like, no. Like, you have to be physically removed. And this, if you go to prison or whatever, they just wanted me to be alive.
Yeah.
Whether it's in a prison.
Sure.
Or, just, yeah. And I get it. And the first day I got to jail, they had it very orchestrated. I found out when I was with the bounty hunters getting transported to jail. Doug Cooperman, my bail bondsman, who I had a really tight relationship with. That's somebody you never want to be friends with, as a bail bondsman. That means you're getting arrested a lot. And he's like, "Dude, your family loves you." He's like, "I've seen you up here and I've seen you down here." He's like, "I don't know this person," because he'd seen me doing really well at different times. We're Facebook friends and keep in touch, and he's like, "Your dad loves you, dude." He's like, "I don't have that. I don't have a family that would do any of this for me."
Yeah, Trev, there's no lack of love for you.
Never that.
You have something about you that's very endearing, very powerful, and people just want to love you. It's just obvious that you were pushing them away for your own reasons, and it's all because of addiction.
Yeah.
So,
and I want to hit on the day that I got arrested, right?
Yeah.
Because I get to jail. You go through intake, which is like 3-4 days in Vegas. And then there's a letter waiting for me, like, when I get to my unit. And I'm like, that's weird. Like, somebody mailed this, it's from my dad.
Yeah.
It's a great letter. It was a much better tone than the last time we spoke in the pew of the church. "This should have been you. Why'd you show it to her?" It wasn't any of that. It was my dad moving closer to an acceptance stage, right? And powerful letter. Kept it with me all through that time. Would read it randomly. Showed it to other people. I remember this older guy. He cried when he read that letter. He's like, "I wish there wasn't anybody that loved him enough to even write him a letter." Yeah. And I kind of saw a glimpse of my future.
It sounds like, in spite of the hurt, the hardship, that you found a lot of encouragement in that letter, regardless of what he wrote.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the mindset of like, hey, you can do this, You can do this.
I'm really glad that you brought that up because, see, that's really what this is all about. Is I think a portion of the antidote for those who are suffering is not just encouragement, but it's the right encouragement.
Sure.
So I want to shift gears a little bit here. Thank you for sharing and being incredibly vulnerable with that story. So a few years pass, you're doing addict shit.
Well, you would think
You're having addict consequences.
Well, you think that my sister dying
would change.
and I would get sober and I would do this and that, but
well, you didn't use because of her, and you're not going to quit because of her, right? We don't make the rules.
no.
So you put out a little bit of an SOS, and I see it. I'm in early stages of recovery, like probably around a year.
Yep.
Had about a year of sobriety and was just trying to give back. And so that's why I reached out, is serving was saving me.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily because I knew what I was doing, but as far as the program was concerned, it seemed like the next right step. Look, that guy's hurting. He's family. And I actually was already helping JT, who is a cousin of, who is the son of one of my cousins. And you are the son of one of my cousins too.
Yep.
And he had reached out in a similar way. And I said, come on out. So it just made sense to have you out there. So why don't you kind of walk me through a little bit about what that quote unquote rehab looked like?
Yeah.
I see you kind of smiling there.
Yeah.
Because it was fun.
It was.
It was a bit of the blind leading the blind.
Yeah, that's how we always
But we were doing our best.
We were doing our very best. And it was definitely better than what I was doing before coming out to Clovis. But when I flew out to Lubbock, like we touched on it, bag of clothes, living at my dealer's house, at that time when I came out here. So just wasn't really expecting anything. It was just kind of like, a blurry moment. Is this going to work? Is this not? Been here before, tried this before, tried moving my location, geography, all these things, the doubt, like the reality is if I go back to the first day I walked out the gate and saw you and JT, my first initial reaction was probably, this isn't going to work. Because I had been down this road before, and so that attempt, what I saw from you, whether it was the blind leading the blind, was like, wow, my first thing is, coming from the streets and running amok and committing crime and hanging out with criminals every day. So what's this dude's motive? Why?
What did you think my motive was?
Was still trying to figure it out. Was kind of just playing it day by day, because that's what the agreement was. Stay out here a day. Stay out here another day.
You know what I think my motive was? Looking back on it, was just to remind you that you're a lion.
Well, speaking of the lion, it didn't take long for, the lion is, you and I know, the lion is very symbolic to how I'm alive. Well, just on a bigger scale, because I was at a crossroad in that attempt, right? So let's talk about it. Day one, I'm in my feelings. I'm sick. Dope sick, right? And you guys are telling me
and you're kicking without any Suboxone or anything.
Just cold turkey.
We laid hands on you. We prayed for you.
Yeah, we tried
some of the
Suboxone. We tried some of the Suboxone.
Couldn't get it.
No, we couldn't get it. Remember, I was trying to figure out all these ways to make it comfortable and this and that. And it's like, dude, get out here. You guys lied to me, said we got you Suboxone. So that got me on the plane.
Oh, that's right.
That got me on the plane.
Yeah.
Suboxone got me on the plane.
Because you said, I'm only coming if there's
Suboxone, dude. It's like,
then you get there and it's like, surprise.
Yeah, no Suboxone. And I was like, ooh. Yeah. But that was God working. Suboxone, I've had a lot of attempts with Suboxone and never.
You told me you wanted to feel it this time.
I wanted to feel it this time, right? I want to feel it. I want to feel the pain. I want to feel the exact opposite, because a withdrawal, if you want to know the definition of it for a normal person that doesn't know, it's the exact opposite feeling of when I'm on that drug.
Yeah.
So think about that. What does heroin do? It numbs, it silences, it makes me feel all
to the degree that there is the positive experience is to the same degree you're having the negative experience.
Well, yeah. So think about the opposite ends of numb, feel. Ooh, haven't been feeling.
Which is exactly what you don't want to do.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I've been running from, and now it's crashing down on me all like an avalanche. Like the warm fuzzy, Now, guess what? Your body temperature, yeah, throw that out the window. Cold, hot. You're never going to be one. And it's going to take a long time for you to get past that. So going through all that without the Suboxone, I'm like, yeah, I got to feel this, you know? And day one in my feelings. And then the craziest thing happens. You know, my relationship with God was the weakest that had ever been in my whole entire life at that moment.
Yeah.
And then here's 7 random guys come to this hotel room I'm staying at that don't know me. You just called them from the Bible study on is it First Street in Clovis? Is that First?
Yeah.
On First Street.
Yeah.
Shout out to the men's Bible study. They all show up. And these guys are in my hotel room for an awkward amount of time to where I'm like, get the hell out.
Yeah.
Get out. I need to be sick. They wouldn't leave. And they're praying over me by name, telling me just I'm listening to this. I'm like, these guys don't know what heroin is. They think that God is going to remove these withdrawals and this and that. Get out of here. You know, but I sat and I entertained it. Did the withdrawals, were they none? Absolutely not. I still felt everything, but there was something different this time. A shift in the mindset. Like, okay, yeah, let's mind over matter this. Let's mind over matter this and just keep praying. These guys are praying, so I guess praying is going to be a part of this. Let's try it out.
Yeah.
Day 2, I'm in the gym, right? Just stretching and doing little things.
Yeah.
You're kind of showing me off like he's on day 2 from heroin, dude. He's in the gym. Day 3, back at the gym, right? And then we'll go to day 4. Pink clouds kind of fading off a little bit. I'm feeling it that day. Not in a good place. I'm doubts, fear, anxiety. I want to go home. I'm already mapping what that looks like.
You're ready to quit.
I'm ready to quit. And I'm not even telling you I'm looking up flights. Like I'm looking at how to get out of here. And you caught wind on the way to the gym. Because I didn't want to go to the gym. You said, nah, bro, let's go.
That's part of it.
I'm picking you up. Let's go. Fight through it. You got this. Mind over matter, right? That's what you're saying, mind over matter. And so you pick me up. We go on the way, and I'm just in my feelings. And you pull the car over. We're on a dirt road on the way to Bodies in Motion in Clovis. And you told me a story about Nico, a client of yours. And he's from South Africa.
Yeah.
You described his physique. He looks like Arnold in his prime. He's 50. Never seen a guy this fit and good looking in your life. That's how you described him.
Yeah.
And he used to be a personal trainer for very, very wealthy people in South Africa. He had a client that had a cage. And in that cage was these dogs, these big dogs that hunt lions, and a lion. And Nico would happen to be there while they were feeding. And he said he had never seen anything like that in his whole entire life. The lion let the dogs eat first. And when he tried to get his, the dog barked him into a corner. And the lion cowered and was whimpering. Nico's like, what's going on here? Well, I rescued the guy, his client told him I rescued that lion when it was a cub from poachers. That lion thinks that dog is the king of that cage. I didn't know where you're going with the story. Nico goes back 2 weeks later to go train, missing one dog. Nico asked him, what happened to that other dog? He replied with, well, it's pretty simple, Nico. The lion remembered it was a lion and ended it at that. And you looked at me dead in the eye. He said, you're a lion, bro. You just forgot. And you're like, I'm opening that damn cage and it's going to stay open. Come on out. And that lion story has not only been told to everybody that I come across that's struggling. When I see them in their cage, when they have that self-doubt, the self-pity, all the lies, the fear, the not good enough. I'm like, no. Here, I got the key and I'm going to leave it with you. That door might shut sometimes, but don't ever believe the lie that it's locked. Sometimes we all go back in our cage. And that story is without that story, I'm not alive. I'm just not. I go back to Vegas, I run, I put my tail behind my legs, and I get back in my cage and I never remember. I would have never remembered.
You know, I've told that story as many times as it was necessary to tell it, and never, not once, has it not made an impact. Everybody seems frozen with it, because I think whether you're an addict or just someone who's normal, you can relate to the fact that there's a piece of your identity that you know that you should become, or a potential that is out there in front of you, but there is some sort of self-imposed limitation that you want to crawl back to the damn cage. It's comfortable.
It's easy.
It's familiar.
It's easy. Yeah. And, you know, let's flash forward though real quick. Can I go?
Well, you want to talk about when the lion picture, right?
Yes.
I want to go, before we get there, I want to talk quickly about my motive, because as we're starting to uncover this, I have this retroactive understanding, right? Because this is what this is all about.
Yeah.
Go back into the wreckage of the past, not to close the door, but to make peace with it. And what I'm starting to understand is that when I was doing my 90 and 90, my sponsor told me, he goes, look, you're not going to think your way into good behavior, but you can behave your way into good thinking. And the problem that I always dealt with was my thoughts. It still is my thoughts. My first thought is almost always wrong. And I have to sit there and pause and review that and get to the second or the third thought to make sure that I have clarity, because I am so easily influenced by my feelings.
Sure.
And I've learned that feelings are just data. That's all they are. They're messengers. But they were horrible masters for me.
Yeah.
And when I was trying to encourage you about the gym, it wasn't that I knew what the hell to do in the gym. I wasn't even really fit at that time. I just knew that if I went there, it was the right fucking thing to do.
Yeah.
And maybe someday something good would come out of it. Like I would start to think better. Now, when I was there, Jerry Odom, Spencer's dad, he pulled me aside one day when I was coming up, and I didn't really have anybody in town at that time. And he pulled me aside and he goes, you know, Mike, I just want to tell you something. I don't see who you were, and I don't even see who you are now. But I see who you will become. And it is a good man. I wasn't in a position in my life to look that far out. I had a narrow time frame.
Yeah.
No job, getting divorced, 3 kids, crippling debt, all sorts of heartache. And to have someone come to me and say that they saw something in me might have just saved my life. And so maybe that's a bit of a data point for us.
Yeah.
I want to make sure that we hit on the encouragement that you gave me at one point too.
Sure. Yeah, we'll get there.
And so let's not let that pass. But back to the lion. We hit the road because I got you a job. You were working with me. We're in sales. We hit the road. We're out there trying to sell. And we did a pretty good job. But we ended up at a church. And that's
hold on. No. I wasn't hired by Alta, dude. This is 2 weeks into my sobriety. Dude, this is 2 weeks.
Okay.
2 weeks sober. You have the ag show up in Visalia, right?
It's in February, yeah.
In February, yep. So this is right. This is right. Because I came out in February, the first week of February, we saw that 28-3 Super Bowl.
Oh, this is
Patriots.
prior. This is prior. We hit the road.
This is just a trip to go up to Cali, and like this is
because I had business out there.
Yes, you had.
I was worried to leave you home alone.
You didn't want to leave.
So I was like, "Look,
come on,
it up.
Let's go.
Here we go.
We're going.
Can you travel?
Let's go."
And we went to San Francisco.
We went to Frisco. We saw your buddy from college, Halves. We saw Halves. We went to Redding, to Bethel, and that's what's leading me to this. We went and saw your parents.
Yeah.
When we went to Bethel, it just so happened that there was a healing conference at Bethel that weekend.
Yeah.
A healing conference. And you're like, bro, we have to go hit this, because Redding and Bethel had been a pretty strong place for you in the year that you'd been sober.
Yeah, it was a part of
your first year
process.
Right.
For sure.
And there was also an art fest, a Christian art fest going on.
Yeah.
And I'm still sick. You know, like I'm still having like body temperature changes. Remember, I was a mess.
Yeah,
Like I was skinny. I was just like going through it, but like trying hard to get past it. And I remember you were looking at some art, and I kind of just wandered off a little ways, like maybe 30 yards away from you, and super crowded. And this lady is going through the crowd. Like I could see her getting people out of her way. She has this painting in her hands, and she's walking right towards me. And she said, "I've been looking for you," like almost with, like she's frustrated. Like it took her this long to find me.
Yeah.
She's like, "I have to give this to you." And I look at this painting, I turn it around, and it's a lion. And on the back of it says, "Glory to glory." And I'm like, "How much do you want for this painting?" She's like, No. Yeah. This painting never had a price.
Yeah.
I started painting this a few months back. And it was at that moment.
That's a bit of confirmation for you.
It is. Right? It is like, you know.
You need that.
God knows me.
Yeah.
You know, God knows me, and he knows how far I had gone from the path.
Yeah.
And that moment, you know, reinstates this relationship, the beginning stages of the relationship I have now with my higher power. Something just like that. Like, I can't call that a coincidence. I can't call that randomness. I can't call it those things. If I did that, then I'm missing how powerful this moment is. This lady, there's 1,000 people out here. She's like been going around like she's like frantic.
I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, she was like stressed out. Like she wasn't going to find this person that she painted it for, but she had me envisioned the whole time. And if you've been to Bethel, if you're a believer, you know, there's no limitations to the relationship with our God. You know, it's like, how much do you pour into it?
Yeah.
Is how much you're going to get out of it.
You know, and all I had to hear was healing. And this is not a podcast about religion or about theology, but it is a podcast about searching, right?
Sure.
Like, let me put it this way. How hard did you search out to support your addiction?
Oh.
Nothing would stop you.
Nothing.
Right? Nothing would stop you. But when it came to your recovery, were you willing to seek and search to the same degree?
No.
You know, I heard a speaker meeting one time, and a guy talks about, you know, I lost my dog one time. Mm-hmm. And I put up all these missing dog, you know, if found, send here. And he goes, and I remember what it was like as a kid to have lost my dog. And everybody can be familiar with that type of sadness.
Sure.
Right? But he would search and he would seek, and eventually he would give up. But then he started to talk about his addiction, or it was alcoholism. And he goes, what I would do to get what I needed did not compare to what it was like to search for my dog.
Yeah.
And I think that really speaks to the power of addiction. But this is why I believe those who are addicted that can recover have the best chance at a beautiful life, because you can simply reorient. Well, it's not simple. Right? It's easy, but it's not simple.
Yeah.
That's what we say.
Yeah.
But if you reorient that power and harness it and focus it towards something of purpose, it's amazing what you can accomplish.
You can achieve anything. Yeah. There's no harder working person than an addict.
Yeah.
You know, I promise you that.
Yeah.
You know, if you want to think about the things that I've done for my drugs, you know, like you want to know the effort that I put into it.
Oh,
like,
yeah. Nothing was going to stop me from getting anything I needed.
Yeah, let's fly. You know, like there was, you know, and it gives me anxiety just talking about something like this, but no problem. Put a gun in my hand, put it up to a dealer's head, a heroin dealer's head, and take all of his heroin, 100%. Yeah. Done that a lot of times with no hesitation. You know, we could talk about all the crimes I've committed for my drugs, you know, and it'll lead us to how I got here too.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, now having got here to New Mexico at the time.
Yeah.
I was recently divorced.
Yep.
And so I had my daughters, you know, on the weekends or, you know, and sometimes during the week. Help me understand what their presence was like in your recovery, because I would say you are as close to them as you are to me.
Yeah.
And it's really precious to me, the relationship that you have with these three girls. They're now 21, 19, and 15.
Yeah.
Now, at the time, they were about
just little
10
girls.
years off of that.
Yeah.
So we were looking at 11, 9, and 5.
A little bit older, right?
Yeah.
So that was 2017. So yeah, so like
8 years. Okay,
7 years, 8 years. Yeah, your girls, kids are special. Kids are special because they have this blind faith that somewhere along the line during life and all the BS and all the pain and all the hurt we lose. And, we just were so candid with them. They're little kids. And we're like, Travis does heroin. That's why Travis isn't feeling well.
Yeah.
Travis is, he's lost his way a little bit. And there those girls were like not even flinching. Like,
Well, but see, that was the thing that I had learned, especially in rehab, was I parented in a way that I hid them from the truth.
yeah.
And fed them lies so that they would be hidden from the truth. And so I kind of was like turned over a new leaf.
Yeah.
And I said,
I really
it doesn't
appreciate
matter.
it too.
It doesn't matter what the truth is. We're no longer hiding you from that. We will hide you from the lies.
And you know what I looked at too is like, well, here's three beautiful souls that will never touch this drug because of you and this time that you're out here.
Yeah.
And they maybe never would have anyway. But I knew for a fact, seeing me going through what I was going through, that these girls would never become what I was. I just knew it. I just knew.
So, thinking about the purpose of the podcast or the interview and what it is that we're trying to achieve for those that are still suffering, it seems like I'm starting to connect the dots a little bit, that the presence of those who are or can offer some sort of encouragement seems to be very meaningful.
Oh yeah, no, those girls
speak to that a little
bit. Yeah, no, without your girls and the combination of you, because like you were seriously flawed. But these girls were not.
They were pure and innocent.
They were pure and innocent.
Yeah.
And their prayers, the way your girls prayed over me, sometimes I'd open my eyes and I'm like, how old is this girl praying over me right now? Like, listen to the choice of words she's using. Sophia, especially, when she said, let the ripples turn into tidal waves. And the ripples, she's talking about God's love. Ripples turn into tidal waves, like just, whoa, powerful. I'm dope sick at the time. I'm listening to this, but I felt better. Felt better when she was done praying for me. She put her hand on my shoulder. And what your girls did is, they reminded me that, one, I'm worthy of somebody loving me.
Yeah.
Whatever I've done in my past is the past. And with this God they're speaking of, my higher power, all can be restored. And they really believe that. And through their belief of that, because you couldn't tell them any differently. You couldn't tell them differently. If you asked them day 3, is Travis going to make it? They would have had their, yeah, he's going to make it. Like, what are you talking about? They were ready to fight for me.
They were invested in you.
They were.
And they had been invested in me.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have made it without them.
Yeah.
Now, I didn't use because of them, and I didn't quit because of them. And those are just hard truths.
Yeah.
That's, but ultimately what happened is that when I started to change and they became even more vocal in my recovery insofar as their cheerleading and encouragement, it was like, man, how can you love me like this still?
Yeah.
And, you have a tendency to accept the love that you think you deserve.
Sure.
And it was hard for me to accept their love having been such a dirtbag. Was it hard for you to accept their love, or did you have to come to terms with this is who you were and they loved you regardless and unconditionally?
A little bit of both. I used to think there was thoughts, and I'm big on thought stopping tools, and a lot of the thoughts that come into my mind are lies, and they're not even from my own voice, so, thoughts of when and it's just little subconscious thoughts. And I remember it. Your girls, these innocent girls, I'm they'd be talking about how good of a person, I am, and they love me and this and that. And in my back of my head, I'm like, would you think that if you knew everything that I did though?
Yeah.
Am I worthy of their love? These innocent girls. And sometimes, you run from those people because you're just not, you don't think you deserve that type of love and that type of people appreciating you again, so there's those thoughts. But your girls, powerful. They were meant to be a part of my story at that moment, 100%. And I truly, truly believe that.
So we go through that. You come out in February, right?
Yep.
We go through a summer. A lot of things happened, but around August, July, August of 2017, things kind of started to change. Tell me a little bit about what happened when you...
Well, the reality is this. Things change because you were like, hey, you've been out here for 7 months now. Need to see more from you. And you were doing the right thing. And like, hey, we can't get stagnant. You know, you got me a job at Alta. We got a pretty decent client, you and I together, right?
Oh, yeah.
Things are ticking upwards. But then I got complacent. Complacency came with lack of a program. You know, we were just not getting high.
And if you're not working on a step, you're working on a relapse.
Yeah, and I was just, so there's like, you know, if we talk about this and what we're leading up to, like it 100%, like we had parts of it right, you know?
Yeah.
The desire to stop was there.
Yeah.
But were we willing to do all the other work, you know? And I don't know if we necessarily were ready at that time. We talked about it. We had both seen the 12-step program. Yeah. But neither of us were there at that time, which is kind of crazy to me, you know? And just the blind leading the blind, you know? I love that. That's a great way to describe it.
I wouldn't trade those memories.
No, never.
Those road trips.
No, I needed that attempt. I needed that attempt because, you know, the reality is this. We fall out. You're telling me like, hey, you need to do more work. You're like, you're going to go on your own trips now. I'm not holding your hand anymore. Like, go get new business. Yeah. And I'm looking at this. I'm like, I'm not equipped to get new business. You know, I'm like blaming Alta, blaming you, blaming everybody. I didn't put the work in though. I'd been with Alta for X amount of days and I just didn't put in the work. I thought just my connections were going to be enough and it wasn't, you know? And so then I get scared. I have a little bit of money now and I'm like, you know, I go to my comfort place, Vegas. Don't tell anybody. Didn't tell a soul. Yeah. Just came to Vegas.
We didn't know where you were.
Just for a weekend. You know, it started, you know, just for a weekend. Go out there, come back, and then, you know, I did heroin out there. Not, you know, like that's a fact. I went and did it. Came back. Man, having my buddy mail it to me to New Mexico, dude. Had him mail me two balloons. And after the second one was gone, I packed my shit. And I was gone. Yeah. No phone call, no goodbyes, nothing. Left all of my stuff. Left everything that I had accumulated from those 7 months in my house and just left. And it was October 1. And I'll tell you how I know it was October 1. Because everybody knows what happened October 1st in Vegas.
Yeah. I was so hurt because I wanted to reach out to you. I woke up to the news in the middle of the night to see what had happened in Vegas. Right. And I knew that you were there, but we had not been talking. And I just thought to myself, I knew what that city meant to you. And to see that happen and see it on the TV and not be able to talk to you, I hurt. But what it was showing to me is that I had an immense amount of rejection, an immense amount of abandonment. Mm-hmm. And it's not pointing a finger. It's that's what I was feeling.
Sure.
And what I recognized in me is that even after 2 years in recovery, I had no idea how to deal with those feelings to that degree. And so I've made peace with that because that data wasn't telling me about you. Mm-hmm. It was telling me about me.
Wow.
You know, I have a hard time with acceptance. Mm-hmm. And that acceptance is the key to all of my answers now, right?
Yeah.
I was in AA one time in Clovis. Mm-hmm. There was an older gentleman there, Charlie, and I think that you knew him.
Yeah, I've seen Charlie. You introduced me. He's always there. He's one of the 6 mainstays in Clovis. Yeah. One of the 6.
And he had more time than anybody. Mm-hmm. And he hardly ever shared, and he was a bit of a crotchety old man. Mm-hmm. But he had time, and he worked his program. And I was having a bit of a hard day, maybe kind of like the day that you were having when I pulled over and told you the story about the lion.
Sure.
And I was giving my share, and the fear inside of me was coming to a point where I was probably going to do or say something that I couldn't walk back. Like I was at a point in my life where I could not afford to make a wrong move at this stage. And I remember leaving that meeting early and running to my car, after having this share of just blaming everybody else still. The only thing I had at that point was sobriety, really. I hadn't really improved my thoughts. And then Charlie runs outside, this old guy, and he stops me and he grabs me and he looks me in my eyes and goes, Mike, your acceptance of these things does not have to imply approval. And I was like,
Yeah.
there it is. The truth set me free.
Mm-hmm.
I was so hell-bent on the fact that if I accepted something, it meant I approved of it, and it's not the case. What's acceptance been like for you?
Yeah. To quit heroin.
Yeah.
To remove the obsession. Acceptance for me is this. My brain isn't wired like just the normal guy walking down the street. It's just not. I'm an addict. So there's that. I accept the fact that I'm different than most people. Now, there's a place where a lot of people are similar to me that I can go to and talk to them, but the majority of people are different from me. How so? Well, I've created a decent life, in the last 5.5 years. Yeah, more than decent, I would say. And, there's this harsh reality that I'm still and will always be one decision away from losing it all.
Yeah.
And that is a tough pill to swallow. It's hard to think about. It's not fair, but I have to accept that if I want to live and keep these things and relationships and peace of mind and keep that obsession far, far, far away. I have to accept that, that I can't do things that normal people do.
And it's a bit of an inconvenient truth, isn't it?
It is, but it's like, hold on, because now I see the fruit. I see the fruit from accepting that, believing that, and living, knowing that that is true, that I am one decision away. And I tell all the newcomers this. I tell people in my office, I hire a lot of people in recovery, and I tell them like, hey, I have the same, they say failure's not an option this time. I tell them bullshit. Failures are our most readily available option.
Yeah.
Quit looking at it like it's not an option, because that's all we've ever done. It is the most readily available. And what do I mean by that? Well, my office is on a street and it's on Flamingo in Las Vegas. My neighborhood where I used to sell heroin, do heroin, commit all my crimes is about 7 minutes east. So, my addiction, it doesn't talk to me like that anymore. But in the past, they would say, just keep going. Just keep going. Call up somebody. Make a call. See if they're still in business. That's the thoughts that used to come in. But now, no. I'm so aware of that. I'm so aware that my addictions.
And that's, and where does that thought come from, right? That's not your voice.
No. So yeah, I have my addictions.
And you have some serious time now, but help me understand, after you left New Mexico and went back, you had another rock bottom yet.
Yeah.
And this was your last rock bottom. And this was almost the end of everything.
Yeah.
You had overdosed.
Yeah. So the shame and the guilt, that because our attempt, whether it was good or not, our attempt was, it was a valiant effort. It wasn't a lack of effort why I relapsed. It wasn't that. It was just a lack of knowledge, lack of experience, lack of trust, a lot of different things, but it wasn't a lack of effort. So with that, the shortcoming, going back to Vegas, having a needle in my arm, didn't even go back to smoking, just went right to shooting. Getting high, crying, yeah. Tears getting in the spoon because you just don't want to do this shit anymore. That's what I was experiencing. The hurt that I caused, I hurt more people. Dude, I know what I did to you. I knew every single day. I knew. And it killed me, crushed me. Because I don't like hurting people. I think I'm a good person with a really, 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 really horrible addiction. So it killed me, crushed me, that I couldn't hit you up. Couldn't call anybody because I was just so ashamed and just miserable. The worst run I've ever had in my whole entire life was that moment. The drugs, the amount went up, increased, the crimes increased, and just the not give a fuck attitude was at an all-time high. So where realistically, if push came to shove, I might have killed somebody.
Including yourself?
Including myself, 100%.
Would you is it fair to say that you were suicidal?
Yeah, 100%. My suicidal tendencies are different than somebody that doesn't have an addiction, though. You know, like people that don't have a drug or an alcohol or a substance, like, you know, they're going through it just like I am.
Yeah.
But their method is going to be different.
Sure.
And, you know, so yeah, I used to shoot up, you know, not to get into like the amounts, but I was doing a 0.5 gram. If anybody knows about heroin, a 0.5 gram, most heroin addicts do about $10 worth. I had $40 in every syringe to where I had to get the bigger syringes, and I was putting a little bit of coke on top of that.
Yeah.
And people used to watch me in awe. They were waiting to see if I was going to overdose. They would all be like watching me because they know how far I would take it. Mm-hmm. People would ask me like, dude, what are you doing? And I just didn't care.
And you did take it too far.
Oh, multiple times. Yeah. So in that last time. Yeah, the last time, you know, that last time, I had never overdosed until I left you in New Mexico. Never overdosed yet. Come back to Vegas. And the reason, it's a direct correlation to how much I was really, really hurting this time. Because, whoa, like you actually had a glimpse of success this last time.
Sure.
And look at you, just getting up to the top of the mountain and base jumping off of it, you know? And
top of the pile to the bottom of the heap.
Yeah, and it's like, you know, it's almost like, and your addiction tells you like, this is where you were destined to be. This is where you're supposed to be. That was all a facade. That's not for you. This is where you feel comfortable. And yeah, so with the increased amounts came overdoses, right? I remember the first one. It was scary. Didn't know what happened. The house I was at, they had Narcan, and Narcan is a drug that if you administer to somebody overdosing, it basically sucks all the opiates out of your bloodstream and acts as a blocker, and it will save your life. He saved my life, and I was like, whoa! And it wasn't intentional. I was just like, whoa, did too much. Like, don't do that much anymore. And the reality is, I wouldn't care if I died. The only reason I wanted to live for the next day is because my love for that damn drug.
Yeah.
If I died from an overdose, then I'm not going to be able to use tomorrow. Well, yeah, you're dead. But that's the thought.
Yeah.
I love that first high so much. I'll do anything for it.
It's insanity.
Yeah. And so I overdosed again. That time required a hospital trip. You know, and I'll never forget, you know, it wasn't a normal, like if you went to the hospital for, you know, a wound or whatever, they're going to pamper you and take care of you. Not here. No. Drug addicts it's harsh. It's rough. Like, get out, you know? So I was out automatically counting down to when the Narcan is going to wear off to where I could do another shot. That's where my mind state is. So yes, 100% suicidal. To where I'm counting down because you can't get high if the Narcan's in you. So think about that. Looking at my release paperwork, when did they administer the Narcan? Like roughly calculating it. Okay, I'll be good at 6 p.m. I already have it ready in the syringe, like as if there's an imaginary clock ticking.
Yeah.
It's like ding, 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 ding. Okay, perfect. You know, couldn't wait. It's like, dude, you just died. They just brought you back to life. And there you are. And the last one came 2 weeks before I was rescued, we'll say. 2 weeks prior. It was the biggest shot I ever did. The crimes were, you know, the crimes were increasing. I had a detective that was in contact with me, telling me where I was headed and how many felonies he had against me, trying to get me to cooperate and involve people I was working with. And I was just such a drug addict where I was like, nah, this dude, like, get out of here. Like, you can't tell me anything. Like, yeah, I'm either going to die out here or send me to prison, whatever. Crazy mind state to be in. You know, 2 weeks prior to my arrest, it was on January 26th, did a really, really big shot. And I was in a weekly close to the Strip at my dealer's weekly apartment. And I was at my dealer's house, and he was actually a pretty good guy in a really dark place because he was very, very, very set on nobody put a needle in Travis's arm. Nobody.
He didn't want you to pick up.
He didn't want me shooting it, right? He already knew I was back in the sauce, but I was lying to him and telling him I wasn't using needles. And I was just smoking. And he's like, don't go back to needles, man. I swear to God, man. I saw it last time. He's like, dude, you're done with needles. Like, no more needles, right? And so I found somebody in his spot that would hit me. Because I wasn't doing it myself. I would always have somebody else do it. And so she hit me and she was like, whoa, you're doing all this? I'm like, push it all in. Like, push it all in. She was like, no. And I'm like, push it all in. She pushed it all in. Next thing I know, the last thing I really remember is that same girl slapping me in the face as hard as she could. Just slapping. I remember my face so bruised from all the slaps. And then they thought I was dead. So they started taking my stuff. Car keys, money, dope, all this stuff. And I don't remember any of this. My dealer comes in and he sees what's happening. And this is all from him telling me what's going on. And he said, he's like, just went off on everybody, kicked everybody out. And the first thing he does is get on the phone with the cops to have an ambulance come. When everybody else was going to pick me dry, leave me to die, and just leave, because that's what it is. Not him. No, he called the police, and he had 1.5 ounces of heroin on him, too, keep in mind. He's sitting there with the cops, with the heroin.
The laws in Vegas.
Yes, so there's a law. Yeah. And thank God my dealer knew this law that he had saved.
Back that up really quick. Okay, so there's a law in Vegas if you're overdosing. Tell me about that.
Yeah, there's a law in Vegas. If you're overdosing, you have immunity if you call the police.
Okay, and so your dealer, in spite of the drugs he had on him.
Yeah, he had 1.5 ounces. Okay. He called the police. He sat there with me. He kept me alive as best he could. You know, he had frozen meat in my pants because he thought that would shock me into keeping me awake, having like ice packs down stuffed. But what that was doing was bringing my body temperature down. By the time the ambulance got there, my lips were purple. My body temperature was 93.5. They administered a Narcan shot, no response. They can administer another one and that's it. They gave me another one, no response, and then breathing. And I remember sitting there with firefighters and paramedics talking about I'm good to go, right? And they're like, no, if you don't leave with us, you're leaving with the cops. So I'm like, well, I guess I'm going with you guys, and I go and I'm so out of it. I have no idea what's going on. I'm just like completely don't even know if I'm in Vegas at that point, like just so foggy. And in that ambulance, delusional, whatever it is, like seeing things. But I saw my sister clear as day in the ambulance going like this, like.
Lindsay shaking her head at you.
Shaking her head.
Probably memories of your dad reminding you, don't let her death be in vain.
Yeah, but I remember that like it was yesterday. I remember that. And I remember going to the hospital. And guess what I did when I got out? Guy, for 2 more weeks. And then on February 8th of 2019, that was when I was rescued. I was arrested. I had a bunch of cases against me, a lot of organized things. And that I got arrested that day, got into a program called drug court. It's a prisoner reversion program. I had a suspended sentence of like 4 to 10 years. And if I completed this program, then I wouldn't have to go to prison. And, I already had an inmate back number at that time, 113-4162. And it's like, that wasn't the place I wanted to go. And I knew that place wasn't going to catapult me to, this life that I have now. So drug court was where I really decided to change everything. And, speaking of change everything, we go back to, that. And that.
The only thing you had to change was everything.
Was everything, and it's like, so I get out of jail.
And you did.
I did.
This time you did. This time it stuck.
This time it stuck. But, it's funny how it works because when I got out of jail, I went to a meeting. I knew that AA was where I was going to find peace. I knew it, and I couldn't wait to get to a meeting. It's so funny, like I used to dread going to them, but this time I was like, I need to get to a meeting. I need to see this guy. I need to see this guy who used to be at this Serenity Club a while back, and I never hired him as my sponsor, but I wished I did. I'm telling this to a kid on the bus because all I had at that time was a bus pass and state-funded housing.
Yeah.
And they give me a bus pass every day, and my rent was paid for 3 months. And then after that, it's like, get sober, stay sober. How are you going to do it? You have prison sentence right over your head. So I decided to go to AA. I'm gonna need some extra help. And that guy that I was telling my buddy on the bus about was there. He was there, first person I see. I go up to him like, hey, you probably don't remember me, but I used to come here in another attempt to a meeting called Do or Die. He said, I do remember you. And I'm like, Billy was my sponsor. And I'm like, and I'm here in the back. I'm like, I got this many months. I was in jail. You want to be my sponsor? And he looked at me. He's like, I'll be your friend. I don't like the word sponsor. He's like, I'll just be your friend. I've done these steps and I'll show you how to do them. And I'll give you suggestions along the way.
He took you to task, huh?
Took me to task instantly. He said, and we're walking through the parking lot. He's parked all the way in the back, and he said something to me that was just so crazy and so wild to hear, but it makes sense now. We passed through all the cars, and there's one car in the back of the parking lot, 2019 Rolls-Royce Phantom. And I said, is that your car? Yeah. He's like, I've been sober for 42 years. I should have some things like that. And I was like, wow. A heroin addict, 42 years sober.
Yeah. They gave you something to aim at.
Yeah, and it wasn't, I told him it's not the thing.
No, it's a marker.
It's this, though.
Yeah.
It's this that I wanted. It wasn't the car. Mm-hmm. I'm never going to own a Rolls Royce. That's okay. I don't want one. It was this. The way he said that. Oh. And the way he believed that.
It was the Rolls Royce was a consequence of his mindset.
Yeah.
It was just a reflection of his mindset.
Yep. And I said, how'd you get this? And his next answer is even, it's so great. He said, well, a little bit of luck, a lot of hard work.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. So he said, we're not asking much of you, Travis, except that you change everything. And I was like, you're not asking much of me, but you're asking me to change everything. That sounds like a lot. He's like, it is. But it's worth it.
Oh. And here we are.
And here we are.
The one thing I remember is when you reached out with that phone call.
Yeah, I remember I was on the patio of my sober living house funded by the state.
We hadn't talked in a couple years.
No, I had to though. I had to it was just like this burning desire to hit you up and to say sorry. With no notion or any idea that you were going to accept it. But I just had to do that because our connection was so strong. And I wouldn't be sitting in this chair if it wasn't for the attempt in 2017. Seed was planted, right? We watered it best we could, but the seed, it was still growing. It just, just had a little rough patch. But the roots were still there. And when I called you, that day, because this is how my phone calls went prior to people that loved me. Yeah, good luck. We're from afar. Don't call us, we'll call you. And I had to accept that. It wasn't easy. Most of my lines are blocked from calling from jail. Nobody takes my calls from jail anymore. But then I called you. And there Mike is. The first thing he said, bro, I'm so happy to hear your voice. And I'm just like, dude, I'm such a piece of shit, dude. I'm so sorry. And I wanted it to mean so much to you, and I hope it did. But again, I'm not that long sober. And my sorry is just a sorry. But to you, you felt it. You embraced it, and you said, bro, it's all good. I'm just so happy you're alive. And that phone call, yeah, who knows where I'm at without that. It's like, well, I got somebody. Had my little sister Chandler. But other than that, that was my only cheerleaders at the time, and rightfully so. My track record was was absolute shit. If you loved me, yeah, you're going to be devastated pretty soon, is what my track record was.
I'm familiar with that. I've been on the other side of it, and I've been the one that has hurt people too. But I remember that moment. And there wasn't a day that went by that I didn't think about you and prayed for you and had to own my side of the street, which that took me to some dark places because I felt responsible at certain times.
Yeah.
And that's when I started to learn and understand, right, that people were helping me, that you weren't using or quitting because of me.
No.
This was your disease.
Yep.
Like it's my disease.
Yeah.
And so to hear that you were alive reminded me that you had a chance.
Yeah.
Because that's really all it is, right? And that's what I wanted this to become. No matter how hard you're hurting, if you have a breath, even if it's your last, you have a chance.
Yeah, at that time, dude, all I had was a bus pass, my rent paid, and just like this tiny, tiny little bit of hope.
Yeah.
And then that hope increases when I have a phone call with you. I have a phone call with my little sister. I start progressing a little bit. I feel my life improving slightly. And those little mile markers, those little steps, we'll call them steps in the beginning, just one foot in front of the other. Yeah. Sometimes that's all you have. Is I know that I have a breath coming, so I'm still alive. I have both my legs to take me where I need to go. And I need to put the right in front of the left and keep doing that over and over and over again. And guess what? The elevation is going to increase. It's going to change. But what do we have to do? We have to get more careful with those steps now.
Yeah, the altitude changes.
Yeah.
So you're a little more wise now that you're up on the mountain.
Yeah, I'm not up on the mountain. I'm making my way up 1% each day.
Yeah.
I don't think we'll ever arrive in this space. But I feel like my message to somebody with one day, or somebody that's suffering, somebody that's suicidal, somebody that doesn't want to live anymore, my message has more weight than it did yesterday.
Yeah.
Has more than the day before that, and 100% more than February 8th, 2019. Not perfect, far from it.
We're not saints.
Not saints, just I practice these principles in all my affairs, and when I fall short,
You're quick to admit it.
Quick to admit it, daily inventory, because I have to do these things, because again, it's that acceptance of I'm not like normal people. And you know what? A lot of people that are going through that, they aren't either, right? And that's okay. Accept that, embrace it, get through it.
Well, that's, I'm hopeful with what we talked about today.
Yeah.
That's the message that'll be sent out to those who are still suffering.
Yeah.
That they would find some sort of hope in this.
Yeah.
I want to close with this. If today was the last time that you and I talked, what would you want me to know?
That's heavy. If this was the last day we talked, I would tell you that man, give me a second, If this was the last day we talked, I think the whole conversation would be from a place of thankfulness. I would just have to tell you, because we go back and forth with our little competitive back and forth, but I would tell you, like, you inspire me. You make me want to be better. You make me want to be the best, because that's how I see you. And that's from the heart. I want to be just like you, bro. You have everything that I want. Flawed and all. I want it all. Because what you have is this drive to be better, to help, and to serve. You see the world through a different lens than I do. And you've helped me adjust my lens to see it like you do, because I like that. I like the way you talk. I like the way people interact with you. I like the way your daughters look up to you. I love all those things. So yeah, you inspire me, bro. You inspire me to be the best version of myself. You really do.
Thank you. You know, the deal is that you needed to ask me the same.
Yeah. So if this was our last time speaking, what would you say to me?
I would say that I'm glad that you're alive. And because you're alive, I do truly believe that I'm alive. We used to talk a little bit about the fact that you and I were both trees. And because my recovery started a little earlier, I grew to a point to be able to offer you some shade as you were growing. But then there came a point when I needed the oxygen that you were producing because I had none of my own. This recovery thing is not easy. And there are lapses and there are relapses. But you've always been the person that I could call to confess my sins to so that I would be healed. You never judged me, not once. And you gave me what might have been my most profound, encouraging word ever. Do you remember what that was? You said,
No matter what, you talking about you're going to be,
no, you said, you're like water.
oh, yeah.
Everything around you grows. And I thought to myself, if someone I respect so much, who has put in so much more work than I have, who has what I want, you have always had what I want.
Interesting dynamic, huh?
If he thinks that of me, then maybe it's true.
Mm.
You know, I'll close with this. We know the rules: death, jail, and institutions.
Yeah.
And the other one, and we've said it several times here, is that people don't use drugs because of us. And they're not going to stop because of us.
Mm.
But if I had one thing to tell you, if this were our last time to talk, it's that I believe that you are the exception to that rule. I believe people will find relief and stop because of you. Your program, who you are, how you act, your voice. You're like a general. You're like a head coach. People want to fight for you. They want to win for you. And I have seen it over and over and over. The lives of men and women that you have poured into that are now no longer suffering. So I would say that you're the only person I know that is the exception to that rule.
Wow, bro.
God,
grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen.
Amen. I love you.
Love you too, bro. Thanks for having me, dude.
That was good, bro. I hope we save lives.